The hospital call destroyed me instantly. Your daughter has chemical burns from a bleach attack, the doctor said. 8-year-old Emma was tortured by our HOA neighbor Linda Foster over yard violations. What Linda didn't know. She just attacked the head of school's child. Her biggest mistake was choosing the wrong victim. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The emergency call came at 2:17 p.m. on what had started as a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. I was sitting in my office at Riverside Elementary School, reviewing quarterly budget reports and preparing for the afternoon faculty meeting, when my secretary Janet burst through the door without knocking. Her normally composed face was ghost white with panic, her hands trembling as she clutched the phone. Dr. Martinez, there's been an emergency involving your daughter Emma. She's been rushed to Children's Hospital with severe chemical burns. The paramedics said you need to get there immediately, it's very serious. The words hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Emma was my 8-year-old daughter, my entire world since my husband David died in a car accident 3 years ago. She was my reason for getting up every morning, my motivation to be the best educator and mother I could be, my source of laughter and joy in a life that had known too much sorrow. Emma was supposed to be safe at school. She was in Mrs. Johnson's third-grade classroom, probably working on her math problems or reading about butterflies, her favorite subject this month. How could she have chemical burns? What kind of emergency could happen at an elementary school that involved dangerous chemicals? I grabbed my keys and purse, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold them. Racing through the familiar hallways of the school I had called home for 5 years, I passed teachers and staff members who stepped aside with concerned expressions. None of them knew that Dr. Sarah Martinez, the respected head of school they worked under, was at this moment just a terrified mother whose child was badly hurt. The 15-minute drive to Children's Hospital felt like an eternity. Traffic lights seemed to last forever, other cars moved too slowly, and my imagination ran wild with horrible possibilities. Chemical burns on an 8-year-old? How severe were they? Would Emma be permanently scarred? Was she in pain? Was she asking for me? I had lost my husband in an instant when a drunk driver ran a red light. I couldn't lose Emma too. She was all I had left of the family David and I had built together. She had his kind eyes and gentle spirit, but my determination and fierce independence. She was perfect, innocent, and had never hurt anyone in her short life. When I screeched into the hospital parking lot and ran through the emergency room doors, I was met with controlled chaos. Paramedics were moving equipment, nurses were rushing between rooms with clipboards and medical supplies, and over all the noise, I heard the sound that nearly stopped my heart, Emma's voice, crying in pain and calling for me. Mommy? Mommy, where are you? It hurts so much. Emma? I called out, pushing through the crowd of medical personnel. Where is she? Where's my daughter? Emma? I called out, pushing through the crowd of medical staff. A nurse led me quickly to Trauma Room 3, where I found my beautiful little girl lying on a hospital bed that seemed far too big for her small body. Her usually shiny brown hair was wet and stringy, soaked with water from the emergency shower they had used to wash off the chemicals. Her favorite purple school uniform had been cut away by the paramedics, revealing angry red burns covering her neck, shoulders, and arms. Emma's dark eyes, so much like her father's, were wide with pain and confusion, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks. When she saw me, she reached out with her uninjured hand. Mommy, she sobbed. The nice lady from lunch poured something on me and it burned so bad. Why did she hurt me? I didn't do anything wrong. I took her small hand as gently as possible, my heart breaking at the raw agony in her voice. I'm here now, sweetheart. Mommy's here and you're going to be okay. The doctors are going to take care of you. But even as I said the comforting words, I could see the extent of her injuries. The chemical burns covered nearly 20% of her upper body, with the worst damage on her head and neck where the liquid had first made contact. Her beautiful hair was damaged, some sections completely burned away. The smell of antiseptic couldn't mask the acrid odor of chemical burns. Dr. Jennifer Patterson, the head of pediatric emergency medicine and someone I knew from community events, approached us with a grave expression. She pulled me aside while nurses continued treating Emma's burns. Sarah, I'm so sorry this happened. Emma has second-degree chemical burns over approximately 18% of her body surface. Someone poured concentrated household bleach directly over her head and shoulders. We've irrigated the area thoroughly, but she'll need extensive treatment and possibly skin grafts for the worst areas. The words felt surreal. This was the kind of injury you saw in industrial accidents or child abuse cases, not something that happened to a third grader eating lunch at school. Who would do this to a child? How did someone get bleach into the school? The police are investigating now, but according to the witnesses, it was Linda Foster, one of your parent volunteers. She brought the bleach from home. Linda Foster. The name sent a chill through my entire body. She was my neighbor in the prestigious Maple Grove subdivision, the self-appointed dictator of our homeowners association who had made my life miserable for the past 18 months. Everyone in the neighborhood called her Karen, behind her back because of her constant complaints, aggressive confrontations, and obsessive need to control every aspect of other people's lives. But Linda was also a regular volunteer at Riverside Elementary. She helped in the cafeteria twice a week, supervised playground activities, and attended every PTA meeting and school event. I had personally approved her volunteer application 2 years ago, impressed by her apparent dedication to children's education. She had passed background checks, provided excellent references, and seemed like exactly the kind of parent involvement we needed. Never in my worst nightmares had I imagined she could be capable of attacking a child with dangerous chemicals. Detective Robert Williams arrived 20 minutes later while Emma was being transferred to the pediatric burn unit. He was an experienced investigator in his 50s with graying hair and the kind of gentle manner that put victims at ease while still commanding respect. I had worked with him on school safety issues in the past, though he had no idea of my personal connection to this case. Mrs. Martinez, I'm Detective Williams with the Child Crimes Unit. I need to ask you some questions about what happened today and about your relationship with Linda Foster. I know this is difficult, but we need to understand the full situation. We sat in a small family conference room while nurses continued treating Emma down the hall. Through the window, I could see other parents in the waiting area, holding their healthy children a little closer after hearing about the attack. Detective, I know Linda Foster personally. She's my neighbor and a volunteer here at the school. But I cannot understand why she would hurt Emma. What exactly happened? Detective Williams opened his notebook and consulted his notes. According to multiple witnesses, including other volunteers and several students, Mrs. Foster was working her regular shift in the cafeteria when she spotted your daughter eating lunch at table 7. She approached Emma carrying a large bottle of industrial-strength bleach that she had brought from home. My stomach turned. Linda had planned this attack. She hadn't snapped in a moment of anger, she had deliberately brought a dangerous chemical to school with the intention of using it. Mrs. Foster began yelling at Emma about supposed violations of your homeowners association rules. The witnesses say she was screaming about your yard, your mailbox, and your disrespectful attitude toward neighborhood standards. When Emma said she didn't understand what the lady was talking about, Mrs. Foster became even more enraged. Emma's 8 years old, I said, my voice tight with anger. She doesn't know anything about HOA rules or neighborhood disputes. She's just a child trying to eat her lunch. That's when Mrs. Foster unscrewed the cap on the bleach bottle and poured the entire contents over Emma's head, saying, maybe this will teach your mother to follow the rules and show some respect for her neighbors. The image of Linda Foster deliberately pouring bleach on my terrified daughter filled me with a rage unlike anything I had ever experienced. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment or a minor incident blown out of proportion. This was a premeditated chemical assault on a helpless child by an adult who was supposed to protect her. The cafeteria erupted in chaos, Detective Williams continued. Children were screaming and running away. Emma was crying and clawing at her face where the bleach was burning her skin. Mrs. Patterson, the kindergarten teacher who was supervising lunch, immediately called 911 and began pouring water over Emma to dilute the chemical. Other staff members tackled Mrs. Foster and held her until police arrived. Where is Linda Foster now? She's been arrested and charged with aggravated assault on a child, chemical endangerment, and terrorism for using a chemical weapon. She's currently being held on $100,000 bail. But Mrs. Martinez, there's something important you need to know. Mrs. Foster has no idea that you're the head of school here. I stared at him in confusion. What do you mean? When we arrested her, she kept demanding to speak with the principal about this incident. She wants to file a complaint against you as a parent for having a disruptive child, and against the school for not controlling the situation better. She thinks you're just another parent and has no idea that the person she's demanding to see is you. The irony was almost unbelievable. Linda Foster had spent 18 months harassing me as her neighbor, never knowing that the woman she was targeting was actually the head of school at her children's school. She had attacked my daughter to send me a message about HOA compliance, not realizing that she had just committed a felony against the most powerful person in the school district. But more than that, she had made the critical error of attacking a child whose mother had the authority, connections, and resources to ensure she faced the full consequences of her actions. Over the next several hours, as Emma underwent painful treatment in the burn unit, I learned the complete details of Linda Foster's assault. The hospital's child life specialists worked with Emma while doctors cleaned and treated her wounds, but the process was agonizing for both of us. Emma kept asking the same heartbreaking questions. Why did the nice lady hurt me, Mommy? I was just eating my sandwich. Did I do something bad? Will she come back and hurt me again? How do you explain to an 8-year-old that an adult she trusted attacked her with chemicals because of a neighborhood dispute she knew nothing about? How do you help a child understand that sometimes people do terrible things for no good reason? The security cameras in the cafeteria had captured everything in horrifying detail. I watched the footage with Detective Williams and the district attorney, forcing myself to see exactly what Linda Foster had done to my daughter. The video showed Emma sitting peacefully at her usual lunch table with 3 friends, eating the turkey sandwich I had packed for her that morning. She was laughing at something one of her classmates had said, her face bright with the innocent joy that made her such a special child. Then Linda Foster appeared in the frame, carrying a large bottle of bleach and walking purposefully toward Emma's table. Her face was twisted with anger and determination. This was not a spontaneous act of rage, but a calculated attack by someone who had planned to hurt a child. Linda approached Emma and began screaming at her, pointing her finger aggressively while the confused 8-year-old shrank back in her chair. Other children at nearby tables stopped eating and stared in frightened confusion as this trusted adult volunteer became increasingly hostile toward one of their classmates. Emma could be seen shaking her head and saying something, probably that she didn't understand what Linda was talking about. That's when Linda Foster unscrewed the cap on the bleach bottle and, without hesitation, poured the entire contents over Emma's head and shoulders. The sound Emma made, a scream of pure agony and terror, would haunt my dreams for years to come. She clawed at her face and hair as the chemical burned her skin, falling backward off her chair and writhing on the floor in pain. Other children screamed and ran away while cafeteria staff rushed to help. The video showed Mrs. Patterson, a veteran teacher, immediately grabbing a pitcher of water and pouring it over Emma while yelling for someone to call 911. Other staff members tackled Linda Foster as she stood watching Emma's pain with what looked like satisfaction on her face. Even after being restrained, Linda Foster could be heard yelling, "Maybe now her mother will learn to respect the neighborhood rules. Some people need to be taught a lesson." Watching my daughter being tortured by someone I had trusted with her safety filled me with a cold, focused rage. Linda Foster had not only attacked Emma, she had planned the attack, carried it out in front of witnesses, and shown no remorse for the agony she had caused an innocent child. As head of school at Riverside Elementary, I had significant authority over district policies, personnel decisions, and safety protocols. As a respected educator with 15 years of experience and a doctorate in educational administration, I had connections throughout the school system and state education department. As a single mother whose child had been brutally assaulted, I had motivation that nothing could stop. Linda Foster had made the biggest mistake of her miserable life when she chose to attack the wrong child. The first night was the longest of my life. Emma slept fitfully in her hospital bed, connected to monitors and 4 lines, her small body wrapped in specialized bandages that needed to be changed every few hours. The burns covered her head, neck, and shoulders, with the most severe damage where the bleach had first made contact with her scalp. Every time Emma whimpered in her sleep, my heart broke a little more. Every time a nurse came in to check her bandages and she cried from the pain, I felt my rage toward Linda Foster grow stronger. This innocent child, who had never hurt anyone in her short life, was suffering because a grown woman couldn't handle her imaginary HOA authority being questioned. I spent the dark hours planning exactly how Linda Foster would pay for what she had done. As head of school, I had resources and connections that Linda couldn't imagine. As an educated, powerful woman in the community, I had influence that reached far beyond our school district. As a mother whose child had been tortured by a trusted adult, I had motivation that would not be stopped by anything. Linda Foster thought she was dealing with just another neighbor who could be bullied and intimidated. She had no idea that she had attacked the family of someone who could systematically destroy her life within the bounds of the law. The next morning, while Emma was receiving her first wound care treatment, I made the calls that would begin Linda Foster's complete destruction. First, I contacted Superintendent Charles Davis, my boss and mentor who had hired me 5 years earlier when I was a young assistant principal with big dreams of educational reform. "Charles, we have a serious crisis with our volunteer screening program. One of our approved volunteers just committed a chemical assault on a student. I need to discuss immediate policy changes and liability issues. My God, Sarah. How serious are we talking? The child has second-degree burns over 18% of her body. The volunteer brought bleach from home and poured it on an 8-year-old during lunch. This is national news level serious. What do you need from me? I want to implement the most comprehensive volunteer screening program in the state. Background checks, psychological evaluations, social media monitoring, reference verification, everything. And I want it fully funded within 60 days. Consider it approved. Write the proposal and I'll fast-track it through the board this week. Next, I called the State Department of Education. As one of the most successful principals in the state, with test scores and graduation rates that consistently ranked in the top 5%, my voice carried significant weight with state officials. Director Thompson, this is Dr. Martinez at Riverside Elementary. We've had a volunteer commit chemical assault on a student. I need to discuss legislative changes to protect children from this kind of violence. Chemical assault? In a school? A parent volunteer poured bleach on an 8-year-old child. We need laws that specifically address chemical attacks on minors with enhanced penalties. This cannot be treated as simple assault when someone uses dangerous chemicals as weapons against children. I'll have our legal team draft emergency legislation immediately. Would you be willing to testify at the hearing? Absolutely. And I'll bring medical evidence and expert witnesses. Then I placed the call I had been anticipating most, to the Department of Children and Family Services. Linda Foster had 3 children of her own, all students in various schools throughout our district. If she was capable of attacking someone else's child with industrial chemicals, what might she be doing to her own children behind closed doors? This is Dr. Sarah Martinez, head of school at Riverside Elementary. I'm making a mandatory report of suspected child abuse and neglect. A parent who demonstrated extreme violence toward a student may be abusing her own children. The DCFS intake worker took detailed notes as I described Linda Foster's attack and her history of aggressive behavior. We'll have investigators at the Foster home within 24 hours, Dr. Martinez. Thank you for reporting this. But the most satisfying part of my revenge was still to come, the moment when Linda Foster would discover exactly who she had chosen as her victim. Linda Foster had been released on bail and was at home, probably congratulating herself on teaching me a lesson, and planning her complaint to the school principal about the overreaction to her minor disciplinary action. She had no idea that her entire world was about to collapse around her. Within 48 hours of Emma's attack, Linda Foster received a certified letter from the school district. I had personally written and signed the document as head of school, permanently banning her from all district property and events. She was forbidden from attending her own children's school plays, graduation ceremonies, parent conferences, or any other school-related activities. The letter also informed her that the district was filing a $5 million civil lawsuit against her for assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and the costs associated with implementing new security measures because of her attack. But Linda Foster's real shock came when she tried to fight the charges by demanding a meeting with the school principal to explain her side of the story. Her high-priced lawyer, Robert Patterson from the most expensive law firm in the city, called my office to request an appointment. My client believes there has been a misunderstanding, he told my secretary. Mrs. Foster was simply trying to communicate with a problematic neighbor through her child, and the situation was blown out of proportion. She would like to meet with the head of school to clarify the facts. Of course, I replied when Janet told me about the call. Please schedule Mrs. Foster for Monday morning at 9 a.m. I'm very interested in hearing what she has to say about this situation. That weekend, Linda Foster spent hours preparing for her meeting with the principal. She gathered HOA documents, violation notices, and photographs of my supposedly non-compliant yard. She practiced her speech about how I was a troublemaker who refused to follow neighborhood rules and needed to be taught respect for community standards. She was confident that once the principal understood the full situation, once the school administrator realized that Linda Foster was a respected community leader trying to maintain property values, all charges would be dropped and she would be allowed back on school grounds. Linda had no idea that she was about to walk into the office of the woman whose child she had tortured with bleach. Monday morning arrived gray and rainy, matching my mood perfectly. I was dressed in my most professional suit, a navy blue ensemble that conveyed authority and competence. My hair was pulled back severely, and I wore minimal makeup to emphasize the seriousness of the situation. At exactly 9 a.m., Linda Foster walked into the main office of Riverside Elementary School. She was dressed in her best outfit, carrying a leather briefcase full of HOA documents, and wearing the smug expression of someone who believed she was about to be vindicated. My secretary Janet led her through the hallway past awards and achievement certificates, past photos of successful students and dedicated teachers, past evidence of the educational excellence that I had worked years to build. Linda Foster looked around with the confidence of someone who believed she belonged in this environment of learning and child development. "Mrs. Foster," Janet announced, "Dr. Martinez will see you now." Linda Foster walked into my office with her head held high, ready to explain to this school administrator how the incident with Emma was really my fault as her problematic neighbor. She was prepared to demand that the charges be dropped and that she be allowed to return to her volunteer duties. Then she saw me sitting behind my desk. The color drained from her face as if someone had opened a valve. Her briefcase slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, scattering HOA documents across my office floor. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air as the full realization hit her like a physical blow. The neighbor she had been harassing for 18 months, the mother of the child she had attacked with bleach, was Dr. Sarah Martinez, head of school at Riverside Elementary, the person she had demanded to see, the authority figure she had expected to support her actions. "Hello, Linda," I said calmly, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "Please sit down. I understand you wanted to discuss Emma's assault case with the principal." Linda Foster's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She looked around my office, at my diplomas on the wall, my awards for educational excellence, my photos with state officials and community leaders. "You," she whispered. "You're the principal?" "I'm the head of school, yes. I've held this position for 5 years. I approved your volunteer application. I trusted you around my students. And you repaid that trust by pouring bleach on my 8-year-old daughter because you didn't like my landscaping choices." Linda Foster collapsed into the chair, her folder of HOA documents scattered on the floor. "I didn't know. I thought you were just what? Just another parent you could bully and terrorize with your HOA power trips? Just someone whose child you could attack without consequences. It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she said, her voice breaking. "I was just trying to make a point about the rules. The point you made was that you're a dangerous person who shouldn't be around children. The point you made was that you value grass height more than an 8-year-old's safety. The point you made was that you're going to prison for a very long time." I leaned forward, my voice cold and professional. "Let me make a point for you, Linda. You attacked the wrong child. You chose the wrong victim. You messed with the wrong family. But the HOA rules?" She started weakly. "I don't care about your HOA rules. I care about my daughter, who has second-degree chemical burns because of your pathological need to control other people's lives. Emma will carry scars from your attack for the rest of her life. Her beautiful hair may never grow back properly. She has nightmares every night about the nice lady who hurt her." Linda Foster started crying, but I felt no sympathy. "Please, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. You brought industrial bleach from home. You planned this attack. You poured it on a helpless child. This is exactly as far as you meant it to go. What do you want from me?" she sobbed. "I want justice. And I'm going to get it." Over the next few months, I used every resource at my disposal to ensure Linda Foster faced the full consequences of her actions. As head of school, I had connections throughout the legal and educational systems. As a respected community leader, I had influence with local officials and media. Linda Foster's criminal trial became a sensation. HOA Karen attacks child with bleach was front-page news for weeks. The security camera footage of her assault on Emma was played on every television station in the state. I testified at her trial, describing the extent of Emma's injuries and the ongoing trauma she suffered. The jury watched in horror as I showed photos of Emma's burns and played recordings of her crying for her mommy, while doctors treated her damaged skin. Linda Foster's defense team tried to paint her as a disturbed woman who had snapped under pressure. They claimed she was having a mental breakdown and didn't understand the severity of her actions. But the prosecutor, working with evidence I had helped gather, proved that Linda Foster had planned the attack. Her internet search history showed she had researched the effects of bleach on human skin. Her text messages revealed she had told her sister she was going to teach that woman a lesson through her brat. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all charges. Judge Patterson sentenced Linda Foster to 15 years in prison for aggravated assault on a child, plus additional time for the other charges. At 52 years old, she would serve at least 12 years before being eligible for parole. "Mrs. Foster," Judge Patterson said during sentencing, You have committed one of the most heinous acts I've seen in 30 years on the bench. You attacked a defenseless child with a dangerous chemical because you disagreed with her mother about yard maintenance. Your actions show a complete lack of empathy, judgment, and basic human decency. The victim impact statements in this case are heartbreaking. An 8-year-old girl who trusted you attacked her with bleach. She still has nightmares. She still bears scars from your assault. She's afraid of other adults now because the nice lady from school hurt her. You will serve 15 years in state prison. You are permanently banned from school property throughout this state. You will have no contact with the victim or her family. When you are eventually released, you will register as a violent offender and undergo mandatory psychological treatment. Linda Foster was led away in handcuffs, her life destroyed by her own hatred and stupidity. But even that wasn't enough for me. I used my position to implement the Linda Foster Student Safety Act throughout our school district. This comprehensive policy required extensive background checks, psychological evaluations, and ongoing monitoring of all school volunteers and contractors. I also worked with state legislators to pass Emma's Law, which made chemical assault on children a specific felony with mandatory minimum sentences. The law was named after my daughter, though few people knew the connection. These changes protected thousands of children from people like Linda Foster. Her attack on Emma had been transformed into meaningful reforms that would prevent future tragedies. Meanwhile, Emma slowly healed from her injuries. The physical burns faded over time, though she still has small scars on her arms that remind us both of that terrible day. The emotional trauma took longer to overcome. For months, Emma was afraid of adults she didn't know well. She had panic attacks when she smelled cleaning products. She had nightmares about being hurt again. But children are resilient in ways that constantly amaze me. With therapy, love, and time, Emma began to trust again. She made new friends at school. She started playing soccer again. She even began to laugh and smile like she used to. One day, about a year after the attack, Emma came home from school with a drawing she had made in art class. It showed her and me holding hands under a rainbow, with the words, "My mommy protects me," written in careful third-grade handwriting. Mrs. Johnson said we should draw someone who makes us feel safe, Emma explained. I drew you because you're the principal and you keep all the bad people away from kids. I hugged her carefully, still mindful of her sensitive skin. That's right, baby. Mommy will always protect you. Will the mean lady ever come back? Emma asked, a question she still asked sometimes when she was worried. No, sweetheart. The mean lady is in jail where she can't hurt any children ever again. And even if she could come back, Mommy would never let her near you. Because you're the boss of the school? Because I'm your mother, and protecting you is the most important job I'll ever have. 2 years after the attack, I received a letter from Linda Foster in prison. She claimed she was sorry for what she had done and wanted to apologize to Emma and me. She said she had found religion in prison and understood now that her actions were wrong. I threw the letter away without finishing it. Some people don't deserve forgiveness, and Linda Foster was one of them. She had attacked my child with a dangerous chemical over neighborhood rules. She had scarred Emma physically and emotionally. She had shown no remorse until she was facing serious prison time. Emma was now 10 years old, thriving in 5th grade, and had mostly moved past the trauma of that terrible day. She still remembered what happened, but it no longer controlled her life. She was confident, happy, and surrounded by friends who loved her. I was still head of school at Riverside Elementary, still fighting every day to keep children safe and give them the education they deserved. The safety protocols we implemented after Linda Foster's attack had become a model for other districts across the state. But the most important victory was simpler than any policy or law. Emma was safe, happy, and loved. She trusted adults again. She felt secure at school. She was growing up into the amazing person I always knew she could be. Linda Foster had tried to hurt my child to get revenge on me for imaginary HOA violations. Instead, she had only proven that a mother's love and a principal's authority were powerful forces that could not be defeated by hatred and stupidity. The scars on Emma's arms were fading. The new safety laws were protecting children across the state. And Linda Foster was exactly where she belonged, in a prison cell, forgotten by everyone except the justice system that would keep her there for many years to come. Every morning when I walked through the halls of Riverside Elementary, I remembered why I did this job. It wasn't just about education or administration or test scores. It was about protecting children like Emma from people like Linda Foster. It was about making sure that every child who walked through our doors felt safe, valued, and loved. It was about ensuring that monsters who would pour bleach on innocent children faced the full consequences of their evil actions. Linda Foster had made one critical error in judgment. She had attacked the head of school's daughter while thinking she was just bullying another powerless neighbor. That mistake cost her everything: her freedom, her family, her future, and her place in civilized society. And Emma? Emma was thriving, surrounded by love and protection, growing stronger every day. In the end, that was the only victory that truly mattered.